Let me give you a quick rundown in reference to how this goes. A convicted felon comes in. And once he comes in, you count 45 days backwards to the day of the execution. So from the 45th day back to the day of the execution, you're assigned there. You have someone assigned to different aspects of what has to be done. His visitation, his eating, his meals, his legal, his psychological, all of these things have to take place in order for this execution to come forward. Coming forward down to the date of execution, you'll have to understand the procedure is very stressful, and it also weighs on the staff as well as on the convicted felon that's awaiting his execution. In the process of that happening, that person then has to be escorted. There's an 8-man team that comes and supports from this way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's an 8th person that stands by. That 8th person is standing by in case one person makes a mistake. If you are assigned to the strong arm, which could be the right arm, you have only to deal with that. If you make a mistake, then that 8th person steps into your place. Once that person is put into the gurney or put into the chair, then the medical team comes in. When the medical team comes in, the medical team then assigns you what they're going to do as far as how the procedure goes. You would then understand what takes place at that point has nothing to do with you, but you're there for the security aspect of what is going on. There are witnesses that are watching this at the same time. In the process of that happening, then there's a person that's assigned to actually carrying out the execution. The death row staffing or whomever the senior person is will read the death sentence or read the death report, which goes similar but not factually to this point. I, Howard G. Reed, as a member of the Virginia Commonwealth Death Row Execution Team, do hereby inform you, Mr. whatever the name may be, that you are here to be executed on this particular date and time based on the situation presented in your court during your case. At that time, you then state the person's name, and at the bottom of that page, you will find that what takes place is you can choose either lethal injection or the electric chair. This time, which one do you choose? They have to check one of the two boxes. If you do not make a choice, the state will make a choice for you.
How you doing, Mr. Greg Reed?
I'm doing fine, sir. How are you doing?
All right. This is the last day of Black History Month. I'm glad to have this data, have you in my presence to actually getting some empirical evidence from you of your history with incarceration, as well as I'll share with you some things that I may have went through that inspired me to even be able to sit here in front of you and us to have this empowering conversation, I'm going to call it, because our goal is at the E.F.E.R.M, one of those goals at the E.F.E.R.M is to actually bridge the gap between the underworld, what people have labeled the underworld, yes, versus mainstream, and understand those psychodynamics that create gaps that instead of bridges, where people get basically exiled out of the economy and other things based on being labeled underground or being labeled pretty much clients of mainstream instead of the giants that keep mainstream spinning. I appreciate you sharing your experience, because we also have a situation where we have police and society and communities are at a total war with each other psychologically, where there's no understanding about the need for a police officer in the community almost until they're all gone. And just like there's no understanding of the need for safety in that matter, for that matter, until safety is no more, then people want to know, how do I get safe? So my thing is not saying that all police are there to provide safety, which is one of the reasons I appreciate the officers who have had the experience, and you not being a police officer, but being an actual correctional officer for over 30 years from my experience. You have some experience on the other side that I didn't get the experience directly. Your empirical evidence varies different from mine. Right now, you're sitting in front of a death row booth in the E.F.E.R.M. We're at the Ex-Felon Entrepreneurship Retail Museum. We in the E.F.E.R.M. We doing this interview, and you're sitting in front of the death row booth. I'm sitting in front of the cell where these two women is actually doing life sentences, these two females. I spent 10 years and 10 months, as you know, of a decade of my life in the Virginia prison system. So I understand that system to a great degree. Not saying that there's not more to learn. There's always more to learn about what you know. So I never say that knowledge is complete. But how long was you a correctional officer?
Well, my career started August 28th of 1990. and my career ended March the 1st of 2022. So for me, many years of working in the penal system or working in the system itself, from the jail level to the correctional level. For me, I spent a number of years actually, and I'll list those names. From 1990 to 1997, I was a unit manager, which is called a sergeant or shift supervisor at Greensville Correctional Center. In the process of me being there, working within the housing units, and populations at Greensville are average 3,000. With that large of a population, your work ethic can say a lot about you. And so at that time, I was reassigned per the administration to what is called now Death Row or L Unit at Greensville Correctional Center.
Which brings me to my next question. I was going to get to Greensville being the actual location in Virginia where Death Row was actually done and performed, carried out. It was carried out at Greensville Correctional Center prior to actually being abolished in the state of Virginia.
Correct.
But we both know Death Row, as we explained in the book, Death Row can always come back based on who's in the positions of leadership politically and things of that nature, who's signing what orders. So in some states, Death Row is still being carried out.
That's
But
correct.
however, in Virginia, they've kind of got a hand on that for right now. But it was a time when there wasn't a hand on Death Row in Virginia, and Death Row was actually punishment of crime. And not saying crime shouldn't be punished, but in that aspect of punishing people for crime, some mistakes was made also, I'm assuming.
Yes, there were mistakes made. The system itself was set up not so much for a lot of times with reform. It was for, as you said, the punishment level. But as time came on and changes began to take place with different people in the, as you said, administration, governor-wise, and different people on the administrative level began to put their heads together and come up with, we may be able to rehabilitate some of these people if given the opportunity based on what they thought was correct. However, in my era of working in the correctional setting, and especially back on L Unit or Death Row, there was a total of 17 executions altogether. And in the process of some of those, and I named some of those, i.e. coming up to James and Linwood Briley, Lim Tuggle, Mr. Willie Lloyd Turner, Mr. David Peterson, and these are the names that I give you that were actually involved in the only escape from death row years ago, back in the late 1980s, in which their executions didn't take place until years later. I met those gentlemen in my early parts of my career in 1993 when they came to Greensville for their executions. And in the process of that happening, if I will, I go into that process just a little bit. You get a person that's on death row that's been sentenced to death after the death sentence has been read to them. That person comes 45 days prior to the execution. And it goes backwards. It's not 1 to 45, but 45th day to the day of execution. There are certain procedures that have to take place. They have legal rights. They have rights that they can have visitors. That depends on what has been set in place by the courts. And then they also have opportunities where in that they had meet with their attorneys. And there are certain things that have to be put in place because of legal reasons based on the laws of Virginia. It has to be done a certain way. It just cannot be just bring them there, go through the execution, and then that's the end of it. There's a whole lot more to it than just that.
Okay, we got the laws of Virginia. We got the correctional facility. We got different aspects that's funnels or tunnels that these people have been convicted through pretty much. Mm-hmm. All right, now, for you in particular, how did you intuit the necessary strategies and tactics that you needed to implement in order to survive death row? Because I can assume you was on death row with some of those guys. And I can explain what I mean by that later on if we go into that. But understood. I can assume to some degree, in some form, you felt like you was on death row with some of those guys.
I truly agree to that to a certain extent, because there were times, just think about it, you're back there 12, sometimes 16-hour shifts. And in the process of being back there for 12 or 13 hours, now you're, just as I'm sitting across from you now, you are observing a man's psychological changing, his emotional changing, and then his well-being changing. Because there were times of people, the people there, they would not eat. There were times that people actually that were incarcerated on death row that were going what people now call a fast, but it was just simply called a hunger strike. In the process of that happening, you have to learn how to adjust to whatever this man is going to present to you in the changes that are taking place to him. Remember, he's on death row. He's sentenced to death. So psychologically, he's going through a lot. He has psychological evaluations that have to be performed by professionals. There are times in which You're back there, and you may have an 8-man team, in which one person is assigned to documenting what's going on with his speech. One person is assigned to documenting on what he ate that day or not, breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Someone is assigned to only documenting that he is either taking a shower or he's not, even down to recreation, where recreation was mostly done in the cell, which was 6 feet by 9 feet. Think about the psychological effects that's having on a man. For 6 feet by 9 feet is only the place of the space that he can use or utilize. And then he has to realize that he can't go anywhere or do anything unless he does it through you outside of his cell door. So you become a part of what that person is going through to a certain extent, because now that person is dependent on you to get things done. In the process of that happening, switch over to the officer, the staff side. Psychologically, you are trained. There's a class called Advanced Defensive Tactics, Psychological Warfare. You are trained to be able to adjust yourself to what has to take place with the changes that go through that 45 days. So within that 45 days, not only is he going through changes, but you're going to find yourself going through changes. But you've got to maintain your focus on what the assignment is and be ready at any given point in time. I mean, on the snap of a finger, things can happen and change very quickly. In that process of it happening, there are no room for error. There's no room for flaws. You can't come in and have mistakes. You got to go to bed that night before. Each night, again, we said 45 days on a 12-hour shift. That's a long time for anyone to sit there and have to observe somebody at that capacity and at that level. Death row, I would say, from my experiences, is one of, if not the highest level of security that you can actually get to unless you go to a federal level.
You ever meet an inmate on death row or a convict on death row that you felt you wanted to see him not get executed?
Yes, I truly did. For me, and I'll give this explanation of it, Mr. Willie Lloyd Turner. Mr. Willie Lloyd Turner, on the day of his incident that took place, June 13th, 1985, Willie Lloyd Turner had cut my hair at Riddick's Barbershop in Franklin, Virginia on South Street at that time. That afternoon, he said, I'm going downtown, which we went to Parker Drug like everybody else to get a grilled cheese sandwich. In the process of doing that, no one had any idea that Willie would end up in a jewelry store called in Franklin. And in the process of that happening, the jewelry store owner was murdered. Well, with all of that said, in his case, going all the way up to the appeals that you have even on death row, it was determined that they felt, the Commonwealth felt, that this man was guilty of the situation that took place. But after hearing all of the evidence and then at the trials that he had to be expunged, some of the evidence came out that nobody was actually aware of. And in the process of those things taking place, there were witnesses that, because of the statutes of limitation, could not be witnesses. And listening to all of that and seeing it and observing it, and then listening to Willie himself, there were days on days that I sat in front of Willie Turner's cell and listened to him explain chronologically from day one to the day of his execution what actually took place. And if you listen to the way he presented it, not so much he was being manipulated, but he was just cut and dry to the point of what happened. In the midst of listening to all of that, there were times that my thoughts changed to, wait a minute, hold it. This doesn't seem like this man actually committed this particular crime. And then when you find out that one of the police officers that was involved at that time, who was no longer here now, Lieutenant Bain, with the police department then, who later got moved up to Maine on the police department. And then later, again, I say it this way, what goes around comes around. He went to drive one of his fellow partners to a bank. And so the man was supposed to cash a check, a way that it came to me, that he was supposed to cash a check. In the process of that happening, the man came out and he thought he had cashed a check, but the man had actually robbed the bank. Now, he had to do federal time because he was assisting and abetting someone in a crime. Again, what goes around comes around. But leaving from that particular case really stuck with me because of this reason. On May 25th, 1995, the day and the night of his execution, there was a .38 revolver that was found in the typewriter. As we sit here now, he could reach over and type on the typewriter. They were allowed to have a typewriter. But no one, and I mean no one, knew at that time that there was an opportunity for him to reach into the typewriter, because they had used a utility knife between him and his attorney, Caroline Schloss, who was actually right here from Suffolk, Virginia on Holland Road. Caroline Schloss. I say that name clearly. In the midst of it happening, we all thought that maybe she had something to do with it. The facts of the matter is the gun was in the typewriter. So during the night of his execution, May 25th, 1995, he stood up, he looked over his shoulder and looked back at those that were getting ready to carry out the execution. I want everybody to know that I'm letting you all do this tonight. Well, nobody knew until after the execution, because as an execution team, you are assigned to stay with that person's body all the way to the medical examiner, and then it's turned over because you have to sign paperwork to release the body to the medical examiner to the state. Coming back, in the cell, inside the typewriter, the 38 revolver was found with another 6 rounds that was in the gun, in the typewriter, meaning to me that he was either planning or had a thought of escaping. Willie Lloyd Turner was known as the kingpin of death row. There's a lot of other things that I could share with you in reference to Willie Lloyd Turner, but this can all be Googled if it needs to be. And there's also an excerpt on it. You can find it on YouTube, the Mecklenburg escape. He masterminded the escape, but he didn't escape.
Right, he stayed back.
He stayed back. He kept the nurse from getting raped because of his authority on death row, or the cell block, as I know it, the way we used to call it. Willie Lloyd Turner was the mastermind of it all, but he didn't escape.
Right.
And none of that gratitude was given to him. But at the same time, when it's all said and done, being back there, I was on that block and on that particular walk when people that were incarcerated and on death row at one point, they were not allowed to have to stay inside their cell. Now everybody's in a cell. I came through an area where you were actually walking around on the cell block, communicating with them on the cell block, walking around with them when there was no go to your cell.
Right.
You're talking to a man that's got life sentence.
Mecklenburg Correctional Facility.
From Mecklenburg, but then you go back to when it came up to Greensville, and then for Greenville, you had 500 Spring Street, the wall.
Right. So what you said, you had 500 Spring Street, the wall. We'll get back to that. So do you define because at the E.F.E.R.M we deal with falsely accused. We deal with victim impact training. Do you think Willie Turner was a victim?
In the end, I think Willie's situation was used to bring some type of, as the Commonwealth may see it, or some type of bragging rights for them, or that, okay, the victim side of it for him, he was not allowed to bring forth all that needed to be brought forth doing the appeals of his case on the back end. Well, because of that, that's why I can say that I think that he was possibly a victim at that point.
Yeah, a victim to injustice is what I mean.
Absolutely.
Because we deal with victim impact training, and we have chapter 2 in this museum is falsely accused. And I'm asking you that because Willie Turner can't seek justice now for himself.
Right.
He's deceased. If he didn't do that crime, he's went to executed and he's gone. So I just asked you that because we consider who we put in the falsely accused section. And people that can't speak for themselves, we speak for them. But we don't want to open up no can of worms and be in nobody's business that we don't know nothing about. I just asked you that. I'll research my own.
I have a response.
Do my own research. Go ahead.
In the words of Willie Lloyd Turner, okay, because there's no gag order here.
Right.
In the words of Willie Lloyd Turner, on one given night, while working back, and he was there with me back on L unit, Willie sat me down and he explained to me the whole scenario of what allegedly took place in that particular jewelry store. Willie Turner said that he walked in to the store. He had a sawed-off shotgun. Willie walked in to actually rob the store because he didn't have a lot of money. He has a history of being locked up when there are a lot of people in the Franklin area know that. In the process of that happening, Willie said he walked in and Lieutenant Bain was his name. He came in through the rear door of the jewelry store. The rear door was always locked. So how did the rear door all of a sudden become unlocked? Because according to him, the jewelry store's owner, Mr. Smith's wife, unlocked the door. He comes in. There's a scuffle. In the process of the scuffle, he said he had his hand over top of the man's hand on the 38 revolver, which Mr. Smith was allegedly killed with by a 38 slug. In the process of having his hand over top of his finger wasn't on the trigger. So if his hand is over top of his, that means this other person, Lieutenant Bain's finger, is on the trigger. He said he did not kill the man.
Was it a black man or a white man?
He was white. Thank you for bringing it up. He did that. The officer at the time was white, and Willie was an African American.
What year was this?
That was June the 13th, 1985.
Okay. And so here in 2023, that's over. That's going on near 50 years now. So my thing is, like, we're still dealing with a lot of injustice, even to this day.
Yes.
A lot of falsely accusations upon people that's subjected to poverty, especially that don't have no money or resources to add, or knowledge rather than just money to fight their way out of the circumstances that they end up in. As far as want no DNA evidence for a lot of people, and they gone now.
Yes.
But they spent years in prison for nothing.
For nothing.
And we don't forget that at the E.F.E.R.M.
Exactly. I don't.
We don't forget that there's kids out there that's gonna be sentenced to the new death penalty. which is the death sentence. A life sentence in prison is death.
It's a death sentence, yes.
Prison is I look at it like it's a living graveyard. It's all metal or all mortar, brick and mortar, steel, and you're trapped into a tomb box. Different layers, from the cell to the pod, to the foyer, to the yard, to the gate that you got to go through to get one place to the next.
Very true.
Each gate got to be popped. You're behind so many different levels of walls and cells. So it's like you're free. You're so close to freedom because it's like, but you're so far away. Because you got so many holes to climb out of to get there. And the only way to get through it is with time. So now, and we all doing time because even like with the press that I'm releasing, the Prison Release Education Sanity Series.
Yes.
All right, the Prisoners Release Education Sanity Series. It's a 12-chapter book. I mean, a 12-series book project titled Crime Medicine, subtitled Crime Medicine.
Okay.
Now, the crime that's being committed don't just happen in mainstream or in the underworld. It happens in both. It don't just happen in the black community. It happens in the black, white, the Asian, and all the other communities.
Exactly.
So, but my thing is, mainstream is no more innocent than the underworld.
Correct. Agreed.
There's police that's no more innocent than the citizens. They're just a worse criminal, but they hide behind different titles. And this is why we have so much injustice that's being allowed and promoted constantly. That's just one of the reasons. Because it's like, go ahead, you got some.
I'd like to interject this.
Go ahead.
In 30 years, I've met a lot of people behind the wall, as I know the lingo, as behind the door, behind the cell, however they want to title that. I've met a lot of people that I found out a man can be locked up, but he's not locked out. I met some very intelligent people through those 30 years. I met some people that, such as yourself, that have come out and they're doing a positive to give back to the community. And then at the same time, there were many of people that I met that have lengthy sentences, but they have determined in their mindset, because I'm incarcerated, it didn't incarcerate me. It didn't incarcerate my mind. So they put their thoughts to paper. They've written books. They've done excerpts for different situations that have helped the community.
Well, let me say
but
this
society, society keeps holding things over the people's head and won't allow them to reach out where it could benefit a lot of what's happening today. A lot of what's happening today is because they haven't had the opportunity to hear a brother or a sister, and there's no racial barrier there, to hear someone that's been incarcerated that can tell them of what to do and what not to do to maintain themselves out here. But we won't give them that opportunity because, oh, he did what he did. Well, if he did it 10 years ago, if he did it 5 years ago, if he did it 20 years ago, and he's been incarcerated to the point where now he has reconditioned himself to be of a good opportunity, but yet now we'll take a kid, commit a crime, and they say, no, don't lock him up right now. Let's save him until he's 18 and then lock him up. But what are you doing to revamp? That's one of the reasons that I am very, very supportive of what you're doing here, because you're bringing back to the community what's needed to help the young people to get to a place that they don't have to be incarcerated, but they have a choice.
Because see, at the E.F.E.R.M, we don't take for granted our ability to stay focused on the agenda. And the agenda is justice for all. Now, when you said some while ago, I almost interrupt you because I wanted to just make sure we clear, because when they got incarcerated, they didn't, it was something you said. When they got incarcerated, you was explaining how they started to educate themselves.
Yes.
All right. See, what happens is incarceration, their minds was already incarcerated before they got locked up.
I follow you.
Their minds was actually rehatched, rebirthed while in the tomb, the system. It became their rites of passage, like myself.
Okay.
All right. It's where I questioned things.
Exactly.
I became wise enough to say, hold up, what is going on? I'm in a cell. Why is this? I should have been graduating high school, not in a cell. My mom got to get off the cell phone with me off the telephone with me. They didn't have cell phone. They were just getting them back then.
Right.
My mom had to get off the telephone with me when I was calling her from my jail, not my phone, that jail phone
Right.
that I was using to call her from. My mom had to get in that car early because she was leaving to go to my brother's graduation. We supposed to been graduating that same year. But what I didn't realize at the time, I was graduating at a higher level than graduating high school, getting a diploma. I was graduating from a social engineer program of imprisonment that embodied my better thinking.
I follow you.
So when I got incarcerated, I was able to question that. It gave me the ability to question why they trying to give me a 58-year plea bargain and keep me in this cell for life. Why? The same way I question why there's somebody that's hired to run death row. Why are they executing men that's basically mentally sick, that's been programmed and socially engineered to become demons? You're executing them. I questioned that because I would have been executed had I not got incarcerated quick enough.
Here's an insert for you. This insert is based on a young man that I've met, a powerful young man, anointed young man, Prophet Willie J. Hall. Prophet Willie J. Hall told me these words. Coming from his family's background of being raised and reared in the church. We're talking about the power of prayer while being incarcerated. The power of faith while we're being incarcerated. The power of knowing that God still has his hand in the situation. Saying that, standing downtown, standing on South Street, Franklin, Virginia, many years ago in the 80s, standing next to a trash can with 100 vials of crack cocaine on it when it first came out. 100 vials, so they said. 100 vials. This man gets incarcerated, and while incarcerated at 100, they said, well, okay, we're going to give him 99 years. 1 year, for every vial that's under the can. To this day, they don't understand why, after many years, 44 years now, this man has told his testimony, and I can't speak it better than him, but I know it because I've talked to him and linked up to him that well. Well, 99 years he's facing. Southampton County Courthouse, 99 years. Facing 99 years. Father and his mother, prayer warriors, pastors.
Who sentenced him? Dick Grizzle? What's his name?
Dick Grizzle. You took the words right out of my mouth.
He real professional. He real famous for doing that.
Say it again?
He real famous for doing that.
Y'all heard that clearly. He is. He's famous for doing that. So he put Willie J. Hall behind bars for 99 years. And to this day, don't understand why the man only did 3 years and was released. Willie told me these words. God had to lock me down to get me to look up. He did 3 years, and now he's in the streets of Franklin doing some of like what we're doing here now. 44 years. The thing I handed to you about when a kid is on drugs, they are the things that he has produced, and he's produced throughout the community. And now where the police turn to him to help them. The police turn to him to help them with the youth and the crime situations throughout the city of Franklin. I say all of that to say this. Because society and because the system has done so many wrongs and made mistakes and never gave an opportunity to correct it, but only to make it worse, we come to the point where there's incarceration like we're talking about here. We come to the point where a person comes to death row. We get to the place where it comes to death row, and a lot of it, I got to go there, a lot of it was racially motivated. And because of that, we got to a place now where if you look at the statistics.
Who was this guy you said that they're helping in Franklin, you said?
Willie J. Hall.
You said he getting help from. Okay, what is he doing down there?
He's in Franklin now doing some of like what you're doing there. He helps the community. He's an entrepreneur in the community, and he helps the youth. He ministers and motivates people from a spiritual point of view.
I asked you what he's doing, and I'm gonna tell you why. 'Cause I don't want to drag on, because I'll promote what he's doing all day if it's possible.
Can't wait for y'all to meet.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Because this is what I wanna be clear on. Understanding that they doing what they're supposed to do.
Okay.
By supporting him. If he's doing what you say he's doing,
he's been doing
what he's supposed to. But because that's why I question how can this museum set in Suffolk, Virginia now, and not a mayor, a city manager, which I don't care if
My
they don't
thoughts.
come down here.
Exactly.
What I care about is getting them out the chair so that we can put somebody in there who value a project
Exactly.
that's trying to
Exactly.
keep our kids out of prison, to keep our children from annihilating one another, to keep our children from existing in poverty and
Exactly.
responding to it ignorantly instead of responding to it intelligently and identifying their tags that we teach them
True.
here.
True.
They TAGS, talent, abilities, gifts,
I'm with you.
skills. All right? So we bring that out of them because we don't have to necessarily teach it to you. It's already in them. We help bring it out, extract it. So I wonder how can, and it's more, but I wonder how can any officials in any city get away with these things, with the neglect of neglecting programs that matter and things that matter rather than just programs.
Can I give you a small
Museums,
response?
Books,
Can I give you a small response?
curriculums. Go ahead.
There are officials, and I'm not afraid to say this. I'm fine. I have peace.
Me either, because I ain't just wondering.
There are
I
officials.
know the answer to it.
There
Go
are
ahead.
officials that have what we call hidden agendas,
Uh-huh.
and they have hidden agendas so they can maintain their status in order to get what they get, to keep it flowing continuously, but they will compromise whatever they need to compromise to make sure that they stay in the seat.
You know why? Because they know that the citizens around here who don't comprehend what this is for their future, they know that those citizens will not question why they haven't been up here to create resources to help me, because I don't need them for me personally, to help me help them.
And they also know this. Let me go Bible for 1 minute. They also know this. Being in ministry now since 2003, my people perish for lack of knowledge. There's a lot of people in the community that don't have a lot of knowledge as to why certain things are being done. A lot of people in the community know, okay, it's voting time. But why am I voting for this particular one or this particular one? What have they done to help the community? What have they done to help me? What have they done to help me in my capacity, at my level where I'm at now? We have people that are homeless. We have people that are poor. We have people that don't have the necessary means to get certain things done.
But you know what else we have? We have people that have been programmed to be so ignorant. And don't get it twisted. Yeah. Being ignorant don't mean you can't become intelligent.
True.
But we have people that's been programmed to be so ignorant. If you look at the first words in ignorant, you get ignore. Ignore. They ignore the ants. Ignorance. Ignore. The ants is the thing that's being ignored. So we've been programmed as a people to sit back and ignore and not even identify the fact that they won't help him make this museum a national project, a national name brand project for crime avoidance. Why?
Because
they
people
won't question it. Why? Hold up.
Because people hold things over their head.
No.
Some of them do.
Hold on, let me finish. They've been taught and educated, which is not education. They've been miseducated to not know what is good for them. So they don't know the museum could have stopped their kid that got convicted last week from going to prison. Had they sorted last year.
And kept them from here and here.
Right. They don't even know. They don't take the time because their minds are so distracted. They ain't doing it intentionally. They ain't doing it intentionally. They don't hate me. It's self-hatred. Well, you've been taught to ignore anything that makes you the leader, that puts you in the position to become the entrepreneur. Instead of you just being the consumer to it. This is the E.F.E.R.M Entrepreneurship Retail Museum. The E.F.E.R.M is the past.
That's it.
The entrepreneurship and retail practices is the present things that we use and we do right now. The present practices that we practice, what we preach. Exactly. Entrepreneurship and retail in order to produce our future, which is museums. E.F.E.R.M, E.F.E.R.M Entrepreneurship Retail Museum. That not only is a brick mortar building that tells history, It tells a plan of action for the future.
Here's a thought for you. Looking at the vision of the museum, in which I caught hold to your vision when we first met. I remember that just like it happened. My point is this. They could also see it from this view. Is the museum and what the museum is about, the vision of the museum, the vision of the CEO, the owner, the entrepreneur, the positive person that you have come to be. Is this more of a threat to what they're trying to do community-wise and city-wise and state-wise? Is it more of a threat to what they know the next generation can learn from such a museum and an activity like this? Or is it we don't have our hands in it, and because we don't have our hands in it, we don't want no parts of it because they want to control it? You can't control something that God has already ordained.
Yeah.
And since that has happened, whether they want to or not, this whole entire evolvement of what's happening right here with the museum is going to be put on the map whether they want it to or not. And I tell people this, don't watch the man, watch God move on the man's behalf. Saying that, we're living in a time now that this is mandatory. This is not a need anymore. This is mandatory. Need versus mandatory. It's mandatory because in order to keep people out of here and to keep people off of death row and to keep people in the mindset that says, I'm going to be a positive citizen. In spite, you're going to still have your people that's going to act up. It's going to happen. That ain't no racial barrier. That's white, black, whatever the color may be. The point here is, what are we doing to keep the people from being incarcerated when we can train them up to be the positive citizens?
Yeah, and
it's people like you that come on the scene and other people like you that can speak on it, and people even like myself. There's a lot of people that I have met that would love to have the opportunity to share their experiences. I know 2 people now that are writing a book about their experiences of working in the correctional setting. You know, very good. Bravo for you.
Well, we're going to allow them to tell it on the E.F.E.R.M platform. And we're not only on the E.F.E.R.M platform, on the press platform, because we got the Prison Release Education Sanity Series podcast that's actually being launched next week after next.
Okay.
We got, man, we been had it set up. We just busy. We busy, just like we doing right now, because this message is necessary whether it happen in front of the press background or under a tree.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? We don't mind organic footage. We don't mind organic talk conversations. We don't want a bunch of factory lab made stuff. We want it real and authentic.
Let me go back for 1 minute, if I may. Back to what right here. This is chapter 5, the Virginia Prison Facts. Okay, the section on impractical evidence.
Empirical evidence.
Empirical evidence. Yeah. Thank you. There are times that in my 30 years, I've had to have the experience and learn the understanding of how I needed to adapt to come from work to come to my home environment. Mm-hmm. In other words, there are times that I left work and I came home, and as simple as a little comical with it, but it did happen. Walking in the house, wife or whomever said something to you, just to foul for you the wrong way. And instead of responding, well, let's talk about it. No, you need to go to your cell. That's where you need to go. I knew right then when that happened to me the first time, wait a minute, Daddy, you got to change gears. You got to separate what's happening. As someone told me earlier today, literally for me, that 30 years was just as if though I was incarcerated all in the same. I understand I wasn't behind the wall. I understand I had a chance to go home. But if you think about it, the reality is I'm here for 12, 16 hours a day. I have to deal with everything on this side of the gate. For years. And now I get to come home, and especially after working in a capacity of death row, you come home and you don't get home to 2 o'clock in the morning after the execution because there's so much else you got to do. You got to go with the body. You got to do all these other things. And then you got to gather yourself from the experience of what just happened.
Do you think the experience gave you PTSD?
I clearly think at one point, not now, but at one point I went through a phase that PTSD, I think, was a part of the transition and the therapeutic side of coming out of what I was dealing with through the years. But it also gave me a platform that says, I refuse.
Bingo.
God, I thank you. I refuse to allow what I'm in to be a part of what I'm doing. That's right. So therefore, I had to maintain a platform within me. Within me, this guy right here, me, myself, and I had to maintain a platform that I was going to stay focused.
But I asked you that because you as you acknowledged that you was actually doing time. I know from experience, like me doing time, incarceration gave me PTSD. Post-traumatic stress disorders maybe it wasn't a disorder in the point where I was diagnosed by some psychiatrist or something like that.
I follow you.
But I know that when you think of, you have to break words down to a science.
Yeah.
Post means later. All right. Post-traumatic trauma.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. What is trauma? Trauma comes from what? Drama.
Yeah.
Drama.
I follow you.
Trauma follows drama, right?
Yeah.
Ain't no such thing as no incarceration experience is not dramatic. It's drama.
Any given day.
Drama from dealing with the court system,
Any given
not
day.
knowing how much time you're gonna get, not knowing when you coming back to your kids or your mom. Who, if you ever gonna be able to open the refrigerator again for yourself and get the food you want and go to the store and pick out what you want, put it in the refrigerator. Oh, trust me, trauma.
Let me share this.
Go
Right.
ahead.
You said trauma, right?
But you can overcome that.
You can overcome
And that's what we
and I'm
do
gonna show
here.
you what's happening by overcoming it. You said trauma.
That's why you need to
Let me
get
give
here.
you three excerpts of trauma from experience. Trauma. When you're standing in the pod and you're down on the floor and there's a day room table, as we call it, and there's a man that's known as a snitch. There's a man that tells too much, talks too much, and he goes about his way trying to be friends too closely in with the police. I'm saying lingo that I know. In the process of that happening, he gets caught. He gets caught on the fourth tier above your head. On the fourth tier above your head. But yet you see him coming down, but he ain't walking down the stairs because they've used sheets to tie to his ankles and his hands behind his back and trying to see if his head can hit the table. But every time he misses the table, he hits the concrete floor. Oh, he missed the table, so we pull him back up. When you walk out onto the yard and it's 10:30 in the morning and it's a Thursday morning and you come into work at 10:30 in the morning thinking it's going to be one of those days, but at the same time, you have no idea. In 3 minutes from that 10:30 at 10:33, which is one of the major codes in a penal facility, 10:33 means disturbance. Out of disrespect, they start a full-scale riot. But that's Thursday morning, right? But you don't get home till the following Tuesday morning at 2:30 in the morning because 36 of your friends have been taken hostage and you realize some of them are on top of the building. In the process of that, you walk out onto the yard and you see a man that's been set on top of and he's just being stabbed.
And this was your experience.
My experience. And he's being stabbed. Greensville Correctional Center,
You relate that to
1991.
trauma, right?
To trauma. Then
That you
you
experienced.
walk out onto the yard and there's a man tied to the bleachers, face to the bleachers, hands here, ankles to the bottom. But because he's also a known rat, a snitch, or a gump as they call it, gay man,
Yeah.
you look up and there's nothing that you're trying to do because there's 700 people on the yard. There's 700 people on the yard and they're taking turns walking past this man,
But how
taking
many,
away his liberties. But you get to go home.
But how many correctional officers you think really concerned with that?
There was a limited number.
Is it trauma? Is it trauma for each one of them, or is
It should have been.
or is it their typical lifestyle?
Some
to
the
see
some the
drama.
typical lifestyle of seeing what they saw. Some the fear of what they saw. Some that were concerned
When I
about
say
it.
typical lifestyle, hold up. When I say typical lifestyle, meaning, of course, you don't see that happen, that particular incident happen every day. But did they come there excited to see something happen? Is my point.
I follow you
Because
now.
They already
didn't.
traumatized.
They didn't come to see something
Before
to
they
happen
got there.
before they got there. But watch this, as I say to people,
They waited
they
to
didn't
see
walk
something.
in Kings and Dominion waiting to catch a ride.
Yeah.
They walked into the penal system. They walked into the penitentiary. So on any given day, any given moment, things can happen. What do you do when a man has stabbed you 2 or 3 times when you come home, but you have to deal with all this? You some more PTSD. But what are you supposed to do with all this? But all of the system has is EAP, Employee Assistance Program. There was no Employee Assistance Program in my era back in the early part of the years. So you came home and you had to deal with this. What my grandmother taught me, pray about it.
So your
pray about it was great.
Your employee assisted program didn't have a trauma unit?
The trauma unit was going to hook up with one of your partners and make sure that you talk to him, had that go-to person that you talk to. They had assistance, don't get me wrong. But the assistance was never there but for a limited amount of time.
Let me say this.
I'm talking about eyeballs.
For
I'm
a
talking about
person
seeing
who's been
it.
incarcerated, and you as a correctional officer, I was the convict, all right? My experience right now, when I'm riding down that street and a police is near me, I'm not a scary person. I got a, like, okay, whatever, attitude sometimes, a lot of times.
Understand?
So, when I'm riding, I'm automatically experiencing having to identify and be cognizant not to get angry. Because the police is behind me, and I don't know if he wanted to, if he's thinking like a community officer or if he's thinking like a damn parrot.
Right.
That he's parroting on the community like an animal.
Some do.
And he has his own trauma that he's projecting onto everybody he stopped. I don't know. So after being incarcerated and going through the system for so long, I know how ugly this can get and where it could lead because of my experience. So I have to be conscious to breathe and not get mad because this police is just doing his job, riding along the street. I feel like sometimes I'm in danger when he ride beside me or behind me.
But that's understood by me.
And I'm on defense.
Exactly.
So here's my thing with that. They're on defense too.
Believe it.
So where do we bridge that gap?
We bridge the gap, well, for something that I'm in now. The National Mental Health Association teaches now. I'm one of the instructors and coordinator for mental health first aid and crisis intervention. I train law enforcement now in mental health first aid and crisis intervention. And people ask, well, what is that? Now, law enforcement, which should have been all the way back to this era and this era, being trained on how to simply communicate. We have something called IPC, interpersonal communication. There's a lot of law enforcement that have the badge and they use it for authority and all the wrong reasons instead of the right reasons. They've got to learn how to communicate and talk to people in a much better way. Everything is not what we call tap, rack, and go. Everybody that's doing something or sitting at the stoplight is not always having a criminal-minded setting. But now as officers, they've got to learn that you've got to understand the communication that you have in bridging that gap. Get out into your community. Show your community that you're there to support them, like the original, as we know. But that's not going to happen because there's so much that has happened now that has turned that against the community because of the mindset of those that have corrupted from the top, and I say from the top to the bottom, that have corrupted the law enforcement era, that now we come up with all of this now, mental health first aid, crisis intervention, all these trainings on communication and all these things. When simply, if they would have taken the time to be in the community more and be involved more with the community, things would have been changing way before now. But it takes a situation like this.
It's not just that simple, though.
No, it's not. But it takes a form like your museum that you have here now that's going to, now they're going to need it. This is mandatory. They cannot go without this in order to make that change. Because young people now, they learn by what they see and what they observe. Well, if they don't see the officer in the community doing something positive, because you go out and shoot 3 baskets on the local playground court and think that's supposed to be, okay, I made my impact for this week. No, I'm talking about getting totally, fully involved, engulfed in what's happening with the community.
Bruh, the only solution to this, the police have to come from the community.
Yeah.
It can't be no, you come from that community and you police this community.
Right, yeah.
That has to change.
I understand that.
Because what's happening is, like, and don't get it wrong, that still requires selective picking. Not just putting anybody in position to say, because you from there, you can, no, that don't just qualify you. What are you mentally, where are you mentally? Are you gonna protect your community or police it?
There's a difference.
There's a difference. Are you protecting it or are you policing it? Are you gonna heal it or you just gonna lock it up? Because that's not protecting it.
It's not.
Because we're about freeing it, not locking it up.
That's it.
So with the E.F.E.R.M, you don't just get a museum. After that 12-chapter tour, you're introduced to this Certified Development Coaching Group, which is the CDCG LLC, which has multiple curriculums developed, programs, workshops, training, coach-to-coach trainings, all kind of programs that bridge the gap on that one path called the life path, our golden journey, LIFE. It's golden to us for a reason. That LIFE is living in future enthusiasm. That's what we're doing. There ain't a leader in this society that's a good leader who ain't enthused about where they're taking the people. So we living in
Exactly.
future enthusiasm right now, which means we ain't stuck in our past, but we ain't going to ignore history because today is tomorrow's history.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And guess what? Tomorrow we'll be reacting and responding to what happened today. Just like the day after tomorrow, we'll do the same. So our thing is to increase the awareness of the necessary solutions that's needed to be implemented, because we ain't just trying to create them. We already doing it. It's certain people that's trying to ignore what we doing, but we know you. You see us.
Yeah.
We know you see what we doing, especially in the city of Suffolk, the 7 cities of Hampton Roads. They just gave $4.5 million to some organization crossing Newport News, where this 6-year-old kid shot a school teacher. We ain't but a couple miles right up the street. But I can't be in 7 cities by myself. That take money to put people in position. They know that. And I ain't just giving up all my money. You can hang that up. I'm going to take care of my kids too. And my children, just like I'm trying to take care of other people's. And my thing is, they know it takes a unified effort to do this. So to try to ostracize this movement, because that's what it is. It's a movement.
Isolated.
It's a movement. These museums going all around the country. Anywhere one of our children get locked up at. Anywhere where one of our youth kill one another. Anywhere where one person that looked like me is being judged as just being a drug dealer.
Exactly.
And life being plotted on and destroyed, and thinking he can't represent his community and be a savior to it instead of a parent. He can watch his jury and still save his community. He don't have to he don't have to be juryless and just because he want to save his community. That's why I tell you, I'm the Farrakhan with the diamonds on. I'm the Malcolm X with the diamonds on and the chains. I'm the Marcus Garvey. I represent them. They go right there behind them cameras. I represent all these people who stood up. Nelson Mandela. Yeah, he had a struggle. He's in that wall. His wife, don't forget her.
You can't forget her.
I ain't going to get into their personal experience and what I think. But my thing is, don't forget none of these people. No, but Drew Ali, Margaret Eggers, Booker T. Washington, W.E.B. Du Bois. I don't care who beefing about what one of them was. I ain't beefing with none of them. All these pioneers, these greats.
Is on the same mission.
Yeah. You see John up there, European.
European.
Put together one of the most successful slave revolts. People would say, well, that was a crime. No, it wasn't a crime. That wasn't no more than a crime than slavery was. Slavery was a crime. There was none justice about slavery. It was a crime. And I don't call them slaves. They was prisoners of war. They never agreed to being treated like that.
Never agreed, exactly.
Nah, never. So they can forget anybody who wanted to make that seem like that was just an agreement. It wasn't.
Nah.
A slave was looked at as a job, maybe. Get you a slave, a job, but not enslave me. Nah, that wasn't in the agreement. Nah, it was a fair exchange for labor, cool, but all the mistreatment, dead that. And don't try to ignore it. All this turn down, all the statues and all that. I'm telling you, that is clearly your taking away history. History need to be told. Because if history is told, then people can be aware of how not to let the history that's unnecessary to be repeat itself. Because when history is blindsided and you don't know, it will repeat itself. And you had a history lesson today on February 28, 2023 at the E.F.E.R.M Entrepreneurship Retail Museum. You might didn't get a lot of history, but you just saw history. Peace,
yes.
All right.
Peace and blessings to you, man. Appreciate the opportunity to have this opportunity to share with you.
Yeah.
And not only that, to tell from this side, because many of the staff don't get to tell it from this side because of gag orders and the like.
Right.
But my conclusion is this. Now having an opportunity to be a part of something that's such a vision, because it's the same vision that I've had for some years, but I know how to follow a vision. You grab hold to the coattail of the man that's running the vision, and you stay in your place and you ride the ride, but you put in what you need to put in. And I'm thankful that today I had an opportunity to share with you, because I don't get a chance to speak on it. Opportunity because of you to share from the experiences, and prayerfully and hopefully I know that it's going to help the next young person to not have to be incarcerated and make the right choice.
So you willing to help us take the E.F.E.R.M across the nation and help us keep the youth from going to prison and help us keep these youth from killing one another and help raise them as giants instead of clients?
I don't have a problem trying to assist you in whatever capacity we need to do it, because for me, it has always been a passion as a youth mentor, as a youth counselor, as a mental health professional at this point now. Giving back to the community is how I learned. I started at age 7 playing tennis. I played the sport of tennis up until age 32, for USTA. That's the United States Tennis Association. I played golf at age 17. You know why? My only why is this: because I was told for many years, this ain't the sport for you. This is supposed to be the sport that a white guy is supposed to play and not for you. That drove me to the point of realizing I had to rise above what I had in front of me to get to where I was going. I later got a tennis and golf scholarship to go to school full time. So for me, my opportunity to give back to the community in any way, capacity, form, or fashion that can be, that's what drives me to have the vision to know somebody set me down like you're doing right now and talk to me and open up a door for me to get to where I'm at. And here I am, entrepreneur, own my own business, 30 years of a career, now working in the mental health field. Just got an email this morning while talking to you that I'm going to the National Mental Health Conference in Los Angeles next month to speak.
Nice.
I don't take that lightly. How did that happen? Because someone took the time, like you did with me now, to set me down, to talk to me and to open the door. So why not look back? Not look back on what I've done, look back on who I can bring forward and help that young man or that young girl get forward to what they're trying to have. They have aspirations and dreams and visions just as well. So why not plant the seed now and let God do the nourishing along the way, and then we'll get to see at our latter days what they have done by this particular program.
Facts.
Appreciate you, man.
Likewise, bro. I appreciate you, man. You're a well-balanced, emotional guy after your experience. And, you know, so that's why I said I asked about the PTSD so that we can give these people a look at how anything can be overcome. And PTSD is real. We have experiences that cause trauma, but that don't mean that we are overtaken by the trauma when we become cognizant enough to actually identify what it is and be honest and take accountability, bro, and move forward. And that's why I was able to produce these museums as I do, in all these books and curriculum that help change the mindset. Because that criminal mind is a manufactured product. It's not something no child is born with. Peace.
That's right.